Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and today I'm really excited to kind of recap a lot of the sewing that I've been able to do this winter break. I work at a school, so I do get 2 weeks off in the winter over the holidays and the new year, and I was able to do a bit of sewing, which felt so great. I haven't actually sewn and completed a garment in over a couple of months. So Sojo has been kind of wavering, and then work was extremely busy. So it was really nice to get back in the sewing room. And I want to kick things off with the poncho that I made for my mom. It was self-drafted. We picked up this gorgeous wool fabric from G Street Fabrics 2 years ago. And she was like, hey, could you, let's make something with that wool. And I brought over a couple of patterns and options for her. I wanted to see what she might be thinking. So I brought over this McCall's pattern that I have, M7477, because she wears a lot of dresses that have sort of like full sleeves. So I felt like a cape or a poncho style might be best. And she has just, you know, some ponchos that she has already that she really likes. They're easy to throw on. She just wanted something really simple. So while I was interested in like getting a meatier project, I think at the time, I was actually quite grateful. She wanted something simple, and even that took me like weeks to complete, but we got it done, and I'll insert a photo of what the finished garment looks like. So it was a slit up the front. I made kind of a curved shape for the neckline, had it smooth in to the center. I made sure to match the plaids. I put 2 patch pockets on the front, which I also matched the plaids of, which was quite interesting and fun to do. It had a mitered corner. I faced the pockets, which was really neat. And then along the edges, I did a bias binding in black to just finish it off. But I was able to finish up the poncho for my mom just in time for her to go away for a trip that she was headed out to. So I have a photo of her wearing it out in the wild, which felt really great. So then as we sort of continued into the break, I wanted to fix up some of these joggers and leggings that I had made for my daughter in 2022. She has really enjoyed the prints of these, and these are all fabrics from the Pop collection at Joann Fabric. I just extended them so you can see this is where the original is. Some of the fabric colors are noticeable that it's a different, you know, like a newer add-on, because where it's been faded from being washed for that many years, and then the new fabric. But it allows her to sort of extend the life of pants that she otherwise really enjoys. There were so many offcuts that I couldn't use for like a full garment or another pair of pants. So I decided to do like the most ultimate mashup sort of sweater, so that regardless of which of the bottoms she chose to wear, something would be in there. And of the joggers, that wasn't all of them that I just showed you, because some of them are upstairs in her drawer or in the laundry. But yeah, super patchworky. And I showed it to her. I don't think she likes it. I showed it to her and she has not worn it. She was like, okay. But it's there, and I felt really proud of myself for like putting together all of these prints and fabrics. Like, look at that, even in the corner, to make sure that I could cut this out. I actually used the Simplicity 9391 because I already had it cut out. As you can see, this is a hoodie sort of pattern, so it's more of a hack. I did not include the zipper in the front, so I just folded that 5/8 of an inch in the center front and just cut it out on the fold, and then put my own waistband and neckband and cuffs on there. I made this dress back in 2022, and it is a Simplicity pattern S8888. It is a hackable pattern. I used 2 curtains that I had thrifted with these embroidery on glaze on them. Really beautiful, soft fabric. Now, as you can see, it's not lined, it's just faced. It does have holes in it. So I find that it's quite challenging to wear. I have to wear something under it, but I made it in a rush. I would not have chosen to make it this way. Again, I would have completely lined it had I had more time. For this, what I needed to do was to include a slit in the bottom because it was impossible to walk in. So at least I'll give this another try with something worn under it for this upcoming summer and just see if I can make use of this dress. So here I have this gingham cotton skirt, and I made this some time ago. It is from a New Look skirt pattern, which I will put on the screen. It has this nice yoke feature here that has darts in the front and the back. It has a side zipper, and the top yoke is lined, and it has 2 tiers, or you could just do 1 tier. I wanted to do 2. Did not like how this first row of gathers looked because I had completed the gathers on my overlocker. It's a technique that I learned to do. And then as I was fitting it onto the yoke section, I think the way that it sort of pulled out as I was sewing it meant that when I got to the end, there was a huge section where the gathers were so they weren't as dense as the gathers throughout the rest of the skirt. So it was very hard for me to keep the gathers even. And when I got to the end, it just looked not nice. So it really put me off from wearing it. I went ahead and detached this first row of gathers and added 2 rows of basting stitches along the top on my sewing machine and gathered it the manual way instead of trying to take that shortcut, and I'm much happier with that. And then with that being said, I finally attached the lining for this section, and I went ahead and just serged it and sewed it and serged it to that first tier of gathers. So now it's beautifully finished, lined, and it's gonna go away until the summer. Here are a pair of joggers I had made, I think it's in 2020 that I made this when I first came back to sewing this time around. And it just had a hole in the bum area. And this is before I had my overlocker or my serger. So I went ahead and reinforced the stitch in the crotch seam and overlocked that seam. So now I can wear it. I do have a sweatshirt that goes with this, and I have my matching set back in rotation. These are some of my favorite trousers. I got these from Zara a long time ago, and I absolutely love everything about them. The shape of it actually reminds me of this vintage pattern that I recently picked up from Vogue. It's 8453, and this is for knits or suitable for knits, but if you can see here, the high waist, that sort of like pin tuck detail in the front, the shape of the leg, it's really similar to this. So I'm excited that I have that pattern so I could give it a try. It's a bit more streamlined because it doesn't have the slash pockets here or the belt loops or, you know, a fly front, but might even make it easier. It has these beautiful wet pockets on the back. I just absolutely love these trousers. I had taken them insignificantly years ago and needed to let them out. So I want to head back in here and sort of, yeah, I had to unpick all the side seams, the back seam where I had taken it in, and the other side, and just gradually grade it out. I had cut into like the top sections to reduce some of the bulk the last time I let these in. So I wasn't able to let it out maybe as much as I would have preferred, but it now fits very comfortably, and I'm very happy that I can now wear these. Now onto this bias cut skirt. I'd wanted to try a bias cut garment for so long, and back in 2023, I think November, I had done a couple of projects. I think I was around 5 months pregnant at the time, so trying this out for the first time with a bump, it was nice because the bias did help it sort of drape over my bump. I don't know if that's when I initially made it or when I just finally finished it. But anyways, I made the pattern, and it is McCall's 8796. I did view A. It does have a side zipper, or it did at least. And I just found that the weight of that zipper on this very light and fluid fabric was just way too much. It was bulky and it made it wavy. So I zipped up the zipper and tried on the skirt. I had this elastic facing in the top of the skirt, which I learned from Whitney from Tomcat Stitchery, and I love doing that to any skirt or trouser pattern that I could get away with doing that on. It just helps by adding that bit more stability and flexibility, especially to a garment that otherwise would just have a facing anyways. So I think it's a 1.5 inch waistband, which I love. Anyways, so I closed the zipper, tried it on, and noticed that I could get it on either from over my head, or if I shimmy a lot, get it on over my hips. So I just went ahead and removed the zipper. I removed that zipper. I continued the French seam that I had down on the side seams and reattached the elastic. Easy peasy. I'm so happy to have this, and I'm hoping that I'll get it back in rotation this summer. As you can see, it pulls up at the side seams. I have not mastered sewing with bias. I read all of the things and I still don't get it. The Sicily slip dress has beautiful instructions, so I try to use all of her tips. Narrow, zigzag stitching. I think she even said like sew from the bottom up. There's so many different things that I've been told to do with bias, and I still have okay. And I still have areas and room for improvement. So I'm looking forward to hopefully working on that this upcoming year, but knowing that I don't need to add a zipper might give me that motivation to try again, because it would be fairly easy to make. I made these gorgeous trousers years ago, I think back in 2022. For my Thanksgiving outfit. This is the pattern Simplicity 1069. It's view A, just without the waist tie. So I like that it has the 2 pleats in the front. It has darts in the back. Now, this pattern typically does not have elastic in the back, but I wanted elastic to just give me a bit, like a smidgen of flexibility. But the issue that I had when I initially installed this elastic is that I had not top stitched the elastic down. The elastic is only from the center back dart to the center zipper on both sides. So it's a very short section that it's in. It's not along the entire back section. So what it did was that it sort of lifted the fabric away from my body. It was a very strange look. So I always felt like I needed to wear it with a belt. And then the bottom was extremely too long. I could only wear this with heels. And I want it to be something that I can wear a bit more often. So I went ahead and added 5 or let's say 6 rows of top stitching to this elastic. I think it's about 3-inch elastic or 2.5-inch elastic. It's quite wide. And I tucked that under the facing that they ask you to put in, and I'm just so much happier with it. So I've worn it recently and I love it. I actually paired those trousers with this cardigan, this long line cardigan. I cut this out before I left for Guinea, I think in 2023, and never got around to it. I was nervous about it because of all of the layers that are within these sections here, where you have the collar coming into the fabric, the facing, and the shoulder seams, like all of that made me quite nervous. This is McCall's M7476, and I did view E, this long line version here with the collar and the patch pockets. So I am just so happy that I finally completed it. Hopefully you'll see in the photo what it looks like paired with the trousers, but I am hopeful that I'll get quite a bit of wear out of this long line cardigan. I used a woven fabric for the facing. Because of how thick this material is, I did not want, 4 layers of that when I'm putting in the collar. And I also didn't have any more of the fabric. Because the facing piece is shaped, it has to kind of go straight up, but then curve back to go along the curve of the neckline. It does take up, a decent amount of fabric, and I didn't have enough left of the knit fabric. However, I had this gorgeous match in this like cotton, linen, viscose sort of blend fabric. So I went ahead and utilized that. Because it's meant to be interfaced anyways, that facing piece, it was fine for me to do it in a woven fabric, and I haven't had any issues. I hope that this becomes something that, I'm delighted to wear as years go on. I did tack this portion of the collar down, and I went ahead and did my buttonhole and added this gorgeous button. So this was actually something that I just made from scratch out of a pattern that I had previously cut out years ago. This is the friend behind me in the dark chocolate wool fabric, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, the thing that started off these sort of like cardigans, making and mending them, is this pattern right here. This is Simplicity 8742. I got the pattern from the rack, so this is the rack number, but it is 8742. And I did the view that the model is wearing, view A. I had this really thick burgundy, like wine colored fabric that I just absolutely love. And it is sort of like fleecy on the inside, but it's so dense and heavy and rich. I also had this perfectly matching cotton sateen in my stash. Again, trying to reduce bulk, I use that for the facing piece and the under collar piece here. I actually made this back in 2022. A long time ago. I took photos of it, I shared it, and I had never actually finished it. The sleeves were not done. They were super long. As you can see here, it is meant to be cuffed back, but because of how thick this fabric was, the way that they want you to cuff it back, it looked terrible. I had been walking around with the sleeves going all the way down here and trying to like fold them up in an awkward way, and I just decided to cut it off, fold it over on the inside, and did a blind hem stitch there just to hold it. I also made sure that I blind hem stitched the bottom, which I had not done, and I actually did that by hand, so I'm very happy with that. And I have actually been wearing this quite a bit, so I'm very pleased with how it looks. I had also not stitched down the pockets, they were just basted on, so I went ahead and permanently stitched them down as well. This pattern actually calls for a really beautiful facing detail for the pockets, which I did borrow for the McCall's pattern for their pockets. For McCall's, they just want you to kind of fold the corners in, top stitch the top of the pocket, but then fold the corners in. However, in the Simplicity pattern, they actually have you face it with another fabric. So if I can show you here, they want you to have the main fabric here for the pocket. This is the facing piece. As you can see, it's a bit shorter, so that when you pull it down, it actually makes the pocket piece sort of fold over a bit more, and then the facing is on the inside. So it's such a clean finish, and then you just top stitch around it. I think it adds a bit more stability. It makes it very neat as well. So I really appreciate that. And I am going to borrow that for any of my other pockets that I have to do for future makes. It's always nice to learn of other ways to do something and then be able to sort of apply that technique to future makes if it calls for it, you know? Another pair of bottoms that I absolutely adore, these are Joe's jeans that I thrifted when I went to California 2 years ago. And they have this really cool sort of waistband detail. There is a belt, like a self belt that they have that goes through these channels, but it does not fit me at the waist. It's technically my size, but it's just too gapey around the waist. So I opened up the seam here, fed some elastic, some wide elastic, 1.5 inch elastic through that channel, and then stitched it down. I don't like the way that it looks. It definitely like rumples and ruffles because there's so much bulk here at the top of this waistband. However, I don't intend to have things just tucked in with my back exposed. So at least I get a great fit, and from the front, the pants sit up where they should. And I'm very happy that I took the time to do that. I recently also bought some joggers for my son. He's very slender, both my kids are. So I had to just go ahead and take in the side seams here. So I did that on both pairs of trousers because they're the length that we need for him. They're tall but slender, but now I just took them in at the sides. So now they could wear some of their cozy joggers. I had been working on these two, the chocolate brown cardigan, long line cardigan, as well as these trousers for some time. And my husband and I had to do a quick round trip to Philly on Saturday over the weekend. And I brought these with me so that I could hand sew in the car, and it was great. Like, look at this color, crimson colored, almost like culotte length trousers that I thrifted years ago. I love that I learned so much from this pair of trousers, and I have loved wearing them. I have them inside out, but we'll turn them right side out in a second. So what I love about them is that they have this sort of lining that's like Bermuda short length, which is great. Kind of smooths everything out, makes sure that there are no, you know, lumps and bumps and visible panty lines and things like that, and allows you to just like smoothly put this on. But the trouser didn't need it to come all the way down. You understand? It's not like this fabric is sheer or anything, but it's there for that sort of like hold you in, get you together. And I love it. So I actually have used this idea in other trousers that I've made in the past. So I learned that technique from having these trousers. Also, this is the back of it. And as you can see here, on the sides of the back panel, they have just these small sections of elastic. Again, gives you just that little bit of flexibility. And that's sort of where I got the idea to do the partial elastic in the S1069 trousers that I just showed you, where I did the partial elastic there. And they also top stitch theirs as well. So it's really nice to see like vintage or older garments to just see how they utilized, like what sort of techniques they utilized. I love it. Anyways, the zipper that was previously in here was busted. There was actually a hole in the zipper. So, and it was an invisible zip. So every time I'd go to zip and unzip in the restroom, I'd be like fighting with it. I needed to get rid of that. It was very hard. I was nervous because one, I was battling the fact that there's elastic here, there's a facing, there's a lining. It was an invisible zip. I went to Joann's, could not find an invisible zip in the color that I needed. I know if the zip is meant to be invisible, doesn't matter if they have the color. It mattered to me. However, I did find a match in a regular sort of zipper at the length that I needed as well. So I decided to go with that and just make it a zipper that you could kind of see. It's at the side seam. I wasn't too phased. I hand-picked my zipper for the first time. I love it. So it's in there very beautifully. I got very close to the zipper teeth, and I think I did a really great job. So I sewed this side on first. I was in the car with like my headlamp, but I put the headlamp around my neck so that it was just facing my work. And then here is the lining section. You can kind of see my stitching there. And I am just so pleased that I got this done. All of it by hand, which I was like, I need to do that a bit more. And then I was working on the second version of my long line cardigan. This is that McCall's 7476 pattern again, view E, out of this chocolate wool knit fabric. And I am really, really happy to finally have this done. So I'm wearing something that's bulky underneath it, but hopefully you can just kind of get a visual here. It's got the patch pockets. Again, it's definitely going to be cozy and warm. I think over time it might develop like a little halo effect, like I can see it. I hope it doesn't pill a lot, but it is a wool knit that I thrifted years ago, and I'm just so happy that I finally have it out of my stash and like into a wearable garment. So that makes me really proud. The dress that was underneath it is actually one of my favorite dresses. It is M8064. I love, love, love this dress so much. It's the length of view F with the long sleeves of view C. Sort of a mashup, but I love this pattern. I think the shape is beautiful. It is a landscape, which runs horizontally on the fabric. However, the greatest degree of stretch on this fabric is actually vertical, like along up and down the landscape instead of across the landscape. And I tried it on while I was 6 months pregnant, was so upset when I realized what had happened with the greatest degree of stretch. And yeah, I just put it in the corner for some time. So I unpicked the sleeves, took those out, and went ahead and cut out new sleeves that were in the correct degree of stretch so that I would have the stretch in the direction that I needed. For this pair, I went ahead and added my own sort of like cuffing to the ends here, just as a way to finish it. I did the rolled hem foot on my serger machine to finish off the bottom. I always pass over it twice, just so it's a very nice, clean finish there. Hopefully you can see that. I did the same for the neckline, which typically gives me like a lettuce edge sort of look, but I forgot because this was not along the greatest degree of stretch. There's not much lettucing happening. Like it's not doing the wavy thing that I would have wanted it to do. Instead, it's just pulling awkwardly. I would of course wear this with a full like long sleeve, something worn under it. But yeah, I just wanted to get this motif, this design sort of finished up and get this out of my naughty pile. So I'm very, very happy that that project is finally complete. Another project that I'd cut out in the summer of 2023.
Beautiful.
Thank you. When I was making a bunch of tops, it is a vintage McCall's pattern 3187. I love the shape of this long sleeve top. I had cut it out and also cut out like a small shelf bra sort of situation to go with it so that I could have a clean finish along the neckline. Now I had a bit of the fabric left, not enough I think to make something else for someone else. So I figured, hey, why not? I'm in a season where I'm trying to use up my fabric, guys. So I went ahead and brought it back out to see if I had enough to cut out a skirt. And I did. So effectively, this dress is a mashup of the top of this vintage McCall's 3187. And I cut it down to the bodice length of Simplicity 8874. I love this jersey dress. And I cut out the skirt from the Simplicity pattern and shortened the bodice to the length that I needed there. So I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. It also allowed me to use this fabric up. I had this sort of lightweight, like anti-static lining sort of knit fabric. I just went ahead and attached that under the shelf bra section so that it can just smooth out different things. It goes a decent length down the skirt and then just ends here. I didn't do anything to finish off the bottom. This is not going to fray, so I think it's going to be fine that way. I'm just trying to use up this fabric. It's not my favorite because, like I said, you can even see it sort of clinging to the fabric itself. I don't know if it's meant to be anti-static, but it's definitely staticky to me. But it will just allow the dress to sort of glide over my tights when I wear that, and possibly with boots and things like that. Now I want to tell you about the two things that I'm wearing. So this sort of duster that I'm wearing, I actually made back in 2022, and it is a simple Simplicity pattern, which I've used before in the longer length. I didn't have much of this polyester burnout fabric. It's like a velvet burnout fabric from Joann. I remember I loved this fabric and then unfortunately waited way too long to get it, trying to wait for the price to go down, and then they had just this little bit left. So I got it and made the shorter length of the duster. However, I'd never finished it. I'd added this beautiful velvet lace trim to the ends of the sleeve, and it just bias bound the neckline, but I didn't love that. So I wanted to carry out some of that lace sort of trim, velvet trim all along the front and the bottom, and it was originally squared off. I went ahead and curved that off, and I like it a lot more. I think it just looks a lot more finished. I might have to put some sort of tie system so I can hold it shut in the front, or like a hook and eye system, something like that, just to hold it. Originally, when it was squared off, I imagined myself tying it a little bit more, but because I rounded off the edge, I lost a bit of the fabric that would have originally been there. And I don't really know if tying it would be the best look now. So I'm still gonna figure out how to wear it. I just completed it, so I need to take it out for a test run, but that's what. Under that is a full Simplicity 8874. I'd given away a lot of me-made clothes this summer. I got rid of two of these dresses because the fabric was just wearing. One was in this gorgeous teal color that I wore a surprising amount and I loved it, but the fabric was pilling. I wanted to sort of replace that. This pattern does not have a long sleeve. I just extend the sleeve, or I might have actually borrowed the sleeve from my vintage McCall's pattern possibly. And I went ahead and made this dress out of a gorgeous sort of like moss green double knit fabric that I had in my stash. I believe this was picked up at G Street Fabric years ago. I love that this dress has like elastic at the waistband to just hold it. Because the skirt is so full, I think it does help for the dress to not drag down on your body. I was always curious if I could get away with cutting the skirt on the fold. In the pattern layout, they want you to lay out the skirts sort of, you see how you have all the space, excess space on the sides, and then you cut out 2 pieces for the front, 2 pieces for the back, which is why you then get a beautiful drape. It definitely has a beautiful drape. And then you have a seam line on both the back and the front, as you can see here. However, what I actually did was I tilted this pattern piece for the front along the fold and then just snuck the back pattern piece on the space that was then on the side. So that allowed me to conserve space because I didn't have a ton of this fabric because I didn't know what I was going to make when I first bought it. These are going to be rapid fire. These are all sort of like house dresses or prayer gowns and things like that that I just did some quick fixes to. I love this dress. My mom gave it to me years ago. Now the actual fabric here is slightly sheer, if you can see. It looks like an invitation. It's slightly sheer, as you can see. So it does have a lining at the bottom, and for whatever reason there was like a huge gash in the back here. So I went ahead with my overlocker and just closed that right on up. I feel like while I was pregnant, I reached for this dress once to put it on because it's so flowy and noticed that big old gap, so I couldn't wear it. Now this one had a lot of openings, like rips along the underarm seam. So I went ahead again while my overlocker was out and just overlocked from the length of the arm all the way down into the side seams and did the same on both sides. It also had a bit of a gap here where the thread was coming undone in the very front. So I also fixed that up. So these are all things that like I have in the house, always want to wear, and then I'm like, oh, I have all those holes. My husband also had this sort of like prayer gown that he really, really loves, and the entire underarm seam was also open. So I went ahead and ran that through the overlocker as well, closed up all those seams, and did the same through the entire armhole so that he can put this back in rotation. I have 3 house dresses that I've wanted to wear while I've been nursing and at home and could not wear. And I went ahead and added zippers to the center fronts. So I just interfaced the back side, took some of the zippers that I had and added those. I wish I would have gotten to these sooner is what I mean to say, but these are really, really comfy, and I'm sure I'll benefit from having that zipper on them for years to come. This is a self-drafted skirt I made years ago, using this Nicole Miller printed fabric from Joann at the time. And it is made out of so many panels on the inside because I tried to maximize the use of the fabric that I had, and it just had so many holes in it, like along those panels, because I just used a single straight stitch. Now that I had an overlocker, I went through and overlocked every single, you can see all of the different panels there, every single panel together, just so I would avoid that. And of course, my gorgeous bomber jacket that I made back in December of 2023, it even goes gorgeously with this dress. I think it layers and pairs with so much in my wardrobe because of the colors that are in here. It's a men's bomber jacket pattern from Simplicity, and I had to unpick the zipper. I put a metal zipper in here, which was gorgeous. Because of the loose weave of this upholstery fabric, it kept pulling, the metal zipper kept pulling all the threads out. And to preserve this fabric and to make sure that this bomber jacket sees me through many years, I wanted to take that out so I wouldn't have that issue. And I'm now going to replace the zipper as soon as I get one that's a matching color that fits. This has become a long video. I was able to do quite a bit. My sojo is definitely back, and I hope to come back to you and share a plans video for January soon and get that to you. But that's all for now. I hope you've had some time to make, mend, or design some things and are excited about sewing in the year ahead. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Goodbye.